So as Jenny said, my name is Mike Morin. I am a park ranger with Jefferson County Open Space. What I hope to accomplish here today is not so much a talk at you session, but I'd like to have this more of a discussion. I have some slides, but they're just generally more of an outline of kind of what I'm going to talk about today. So all of you here today, I'm just kind of curious, have any of you been involved in Adopt a Crag, or have you organized an Adopt a Crag? Nothing, okay. You have. And are you involved with local climate organizations, or what's your, where are you all from? Speak up, let's have a talk.
I'm from the Southern California area, and I'm sort of my own local climate organization, and I've done about 4 Adopt a Crags in Iowa that Suicide and Top Teach Rock.
Okay. Cool, right on. How about everybody else? Where are you all from back there?
From the Seattle area.
Okay.
Not directly affiliated with any organization. I do work with the ASCA doing the Clean Anchor campaign.
Okay, cool.
Webbing, tab anchors, things like that.
Nice.
Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho area, working with Rusty Bailey, we're working at the Stephen Coast Falls.
Very nice.
I'm heard with Varsity.
Oh, okay.
Thought it sounded interesting.
Very good, cool. Very nice.
I'm also from New Jersey, but now living in Boulder. I'm working for Denver Public Schools.
Oh,
So
nice.
This is something that, thinking about me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hiding with kiddos.
Absolutely, very cool.
Yeah.
And how about you, ma'am?
I'm from Atlanta, and I definitely work with my Southeastern Climbers Coalition, just as a volunteer for them.
Okay, nice. And how about you?
I'm originally from Indiana, not really part of any organization, but volunteered with the Red River Gorge Coalition.
Nice, very cool. They've done some great work down there. I climbed down there last fall and was totally impressed by the trails and just that whole community. It's awesome. So yeah, we're going to talk about taking care of your crag and organizing and host and adopt a crag today, as we mentioned. All right, so kind of the things we're going to I hope to talk about today with all of you. Some of the challenges associated with organizing and adopt a crag, site preparation, communication with the land manager, logistics, communication with the access fund, which is a very important integral step of an adopt a crag, and support in advertising. So when I was creating this PowerPoint, I really just, honestly, this was one of the things that I struggled with and as coming up with the challenges, because to me the whole process was, because it was brand new, was a challenge, but I thought it was a good challenge. It was a positive challenge. But the first 2 things that kind of came to mind were time and volunteer recruitment. Time in the respect that I didn't really know how much time this was going to entail, and when it came down to me sitting down and thinking about this challenge, the challenges associated with this project, I didn't really have a good quantitative number to share with you all, because it was an hour here, a couple hours there, half a day here, and it just really all came down to, a lot of it comes down to what your site requires. You know, there's site visits involved, there's the volunteer recruitment that ties into time, because you're going to have people, if you do it right, hopefully, contacting you and have questions for you. And so you have to take time out of your day to respond to emails, respond to phone calls, and be prepared for that part of it. Also, on the volunteer recruitment side, we think we had close to 20 sign up, and I had 11 show up, which is actually really good. Everybody wants to volunteer, but then on the morning of, maybe I had a little, party too hard last night, or I don't want to make that drive, or the weather doesn't look that great. So you have that dropout rate. You have to assume that when you're kind of planning your event. So those were the 2 biggest challenges that I guess I faced in the development of this. You know, I had the benefit because I was a land manager working for Jefferson County Open Space to organize this Adopt a Crag. I mean, I was doing this as a paid employee of Jefferson County Open Space to create this this Adopt a Crag event. I mean, as volunteers working for your local common organization or whatever, I mean, that's something. I mean, you know, you're going to have your jobs, and you have to come home in the evening or at lunch break, be able to set aside time to make this happen. And you know, walking into this, you have to expect it is going to take a commitment on your end as well to have a successful event. But I think the benefits of creating an event like this make the time you have to invest well worth it. Just giving kind of an overview of what we did. Jefferson County Open Space owns or manages an area down in the South Platte called Cathedral Spires. Some of you may have climbed there or at least heard of it. It's an amazing granite crack climbing destination on the kind of the northern end of the South Platte region. And we had a couple access trails that went up to the spires. And the access trails cross private land owned by Denver Water Board, which is a kind of a semi-private, semi-governmental agency out of Denver that owns a lot of land in the mountains. They're in charge of making sure Denver has drinking water. And so we had our task was to establish a formal access trail up to the spires. And we did work on the westernmost one, and I ended up with 11 volunteers on the morning of, and we put in just under a mile of trail, utilizing an old access trail, social trail, and as well as doing some reroutes on occasion. And with 11 volunteers and about 3 hours of work and 1,200 feet of gain, we built that trail. Now we had soils that were friendly because they moved very easily, and we had the trail laid out, which helped a lot. But we had these very motivated individuals. It was much different from a standard volunteer project where it's the weekend warriors coming out, and you know, it might be mom and the kids. This was a group of motivated, fit climbers that were ready to cut some trail, and they did an amazing job. We were out there scoping it out a couple weeks ago, and we're pretty happy with how the things are wearing. We're going to try to organize another one next spring to do some light maintenance on it. So that's what we did, and that's it was an amazing achievement, in my opinion. So most crags that you're dealing with are going to likely be on public land. There's a very few places out there where private landowners are managing crags. I think the majority of them probably fall in Forest Service, National Park Service, or county or city open space parks, like who I work for. So extremely important. You have to get in touch with the land manager. It can be kind of daunting, and it can be kind of frustrating. I work for a medium-sized organization, and we still have a certain level of bureaucracy that slows things down. And looking from the outside, looking in, it can often seem like there's nothing being done and there's nobody listening to what you're asking for or what you're doing. But I would say in general, there are people that are trying to get things done in those organizations, and they want to hear from you. So I guess the biggest thing I would say as far as working with land managers is to stay motivated and don't get frustrated by what it may appear to be a lack of them hearing you, because there are years, and land managers like volunteers, and it just sometimes takes a few runs at the wall and to be persistent to kind of break through. And once you establish yourself and you show, go ahead. And once you establish yourself, you prove what you can do this, they'll look to you in the future, I think. That's that initial breaking in that can be kind of challenging sometimes.
You may have answered it, but that was my question. Okay, so land managers love volunteers, and yet there's these little obstacles that you have to go through to get that relationship going with the land managers. And if I heard you correctly, you're saying it's because you have to establish some trust? Sometimes,
yeah, because they don't know who you are or what skills you bring to the table. And a lot of times, you know, it's just there's a little bit of fear, I think, about turning over the reins. You know, I've experienced that in my own organization, working with the Trails Department. They have their standards, and so we're now just broaching. The Spires was this really cool experiment that really worked. It was awesome. And we've proven to the Trails Department that yes, we can build sustainable trails that don't meet your idea of what a sustainable trail might look like. We build in Jefferson County, for the most part, very mellow, multi-use trails. The idea of a 30% grade or greater is terrifying to them. Terrifying. I mean, just and so the idea of putting in stairs, and they just, so I work, part of my duties as arranger with Jeffco and managing climate is I sit on a panel made up of employees from Jefferson County Open Space. We are the climate management team. And when we approached the Trails Department about, hey, we need to improve our trails in Clear Creek Canyon or the Spires, or we have to look at North Table because we have some parcels up there outside of the Access Fund. And here's what we want to do. They said, well, what are the standards? What is an access trail? What does it look like? We said, well, it kind of depends on the situation and where the trail goes. And so, and it took a lot of work on our side to get them to really come around to that idea of what a climbing trail or access trail might look like. And they tend to be very OCD trail builders, but it's really good because they look they build beautiful trails, and you have to be very, very precise to make sustainable trails. But when you start thinking outside the box, I think it kind of scares them sometimes. So it just takes, a lot of persistence and convincing and reassuring, I guess, to some degree. And seek out that person in the organization that maybe is looking to reach out and find that someone like myself who's looking to work with those outside organizations, and find that person that can be your mediator between the big organization and yourself. So
would it make sense to come up with some standards then for access trails so that you can present them and everyone else?
If you have that expertise, if you can find somebody that has that knowledge, that's huge.
Right.
Do your own, if you can show that you're motivated and have some, I would say one of the greatest ways to establish yourself would just be to go out and do some normal trail day exercises. Like in open space, we do just standard multi-use trail construction. You can gain a little bit of experience that way, and you can speak the jargon and maybe give them some.
It'd be nice to have like a central resource that we could draw from, right? So there's already, if you come up, like you've done the project, right? You must have lessons learned and something
Absolutely.
that other folks could reuse. I don't know how you would publish it. But
Yeah, that's a good thought. I mean, one of the biggest things that helped us is, and the Access Fund recently grabbed him from us, with Jeff Young, who's on their conservation team now. He was one of our Trails crew members and was kind of my cohort in this whole endeavor. And he is the guy that came up with this packet that helped our Trails crew relax. They saw that what could be done on some of these slopes, and what sort of outside the box thinking could be utilized to build these trails. And we do have that, and it's kind of cool. We just we're working on establishing the Eastern Trail now up to the Spires, and that packet, now that even though he's left, he left it behind, and we pulled it out the other day to give to Denver Water Board to show them what we want to do on that. So it's there and ready to go. So I don't know exactly how to share that. Maybe we can find a way. That's a good idea.
The point is you get someone like comes out of this meeting and says, yeah, we're going to go do this.
Yeah.
And you do it wrong.
Right.
You get bad publicity.
Right.
And then it's harder for everyone else to go forward.
We should trade emails, because I will find a way to get you that information.
Better yet, it's like you guys just happen to be like right next door to the Access Fund. We live in New Jersey. I mean, it's not going to help us any. Meaning that, in other words, to be able to tap into a resource like yourself. So if there was a standard, maybe on the internet,
Yeah.
generalized, maybe very generic, follow, you can use that as a template.
I think you guys published that book.
We've got some research.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we can work more too to try to get some of our information to you guys.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually.
The other thing, though, is, again, knowing a local person, at least in my situation, the local person knew about climbing trails and knew he couldn't put in a trail that met regular standards. And so the climbing trails are not, I can't remember the right word, but they're not on the map.
Right,
Okay?
right.
They're not registered, and so they don't have to meet those standards.
Right.
We mostly worked on them so that they were distinct and so that the climbers would all stay on the same trail and
Right.
create less erosion, but they are not. You know,
Yeah.
there's hardly any switchbacks.
Sure, but the trail's already there, so I mean,
That trail was
you can only make
there.
it better in
You're just
theory.
making it-
Sometimes, and some,
More incentive for you to actually
Yeah.
encourage
Yeah.
folks to go in and make it.
and one of the things you can do is try, if you decide you want to do this project, and you find that person that wants to work with you within that organization, you can take a trip out to your site with them, and they oftentimes can give you a lot of good information and feedback. Because, you know, it's very unlikely they're just going to hand you the reins, I think, and say, build this trail. They're going to probably want to be involved in that process and laying out the trail, hopefully.
But it's probably already there, right? I mean, it's not built, it's improved, right?
Sometimes, but sometimes there are trails that, like for instance at the Spires, the trail naturally switched back. I mean, people were kind of, but there were places where, so if you have a trail that it came up and it switched back, but it made a really steep angle on that switchback, we extended that switchback out to make a more sustainable grade.
Right.
So there's things like that. But
It's still an improvement, right? You didn't just build the trail, it's
no,
already there, you're just kind of making it
that's
better
true.
and more friendly.
Right. But there are cases, I think, where those current trails sometimes aren't in the best location. They might run down a drainage or something like that. And so there might be times when that trail might actually have to be moved and new construction occur. So, but yeah, I think a lot of times you are just improving a current access trail, that's for sure.
I think, you're just coming from New Jersey. One of your resources would be the Watershed Network. Because is it Morristown I see on your name tag? Hackettstown. But if you shoot up 287 and go up in like Sussex area,
Yeah.
a lot of that land is maintained by the Watershed. And I know from like fly fishing and stuff, you know, just contacting them, they're pretty open with like, if you have a plan and say we want to do this and you know, this is how we're going to protect them. And they're pretty open to working with you, I think, and allowing you access to actually go in and do something with that area, rather than having people trespass and spray paint graffiti. And they kind of want to bring attention to it, so it prevents those like kiddos, you know, having campfires and beers and you'll see littered all over the place. So now if they're getting in traffic and they see some organization here and they're like, whoa, it's maintaining itself by people coming in, using it, and cleaning up, rather than just having the kids go off trail on their mountain bikes or something and then just drinking whatever.
Yeah. So just, I guess, what to take away from this slide, I would say try to establish that relationship with your land manager and try to find that person that wants to work with you and be that intermediary between the large behemoth that is daunting, and I think that's kind of the first step, is just establish that relationship and try to foster that as you move forward.
Can I just add one thing to that?
Sure.
There's a workshop going on right now concurrently with about, oh, okay, you had to decide.
I want to go to the boat club.
That's why we're going to 11's here. You can check it out later.
So let's kind of move forward in the process. So you've made that contact with the land manager, you've established that relationship, and you've gotten approval to do this project. Kind of one of the key things to this is going out there and walking it. Look at, if you don't climb there regularly, maybe you do, but look at the site and determine what areas need work. And a lot of times there's a lot of areas that need work. And for your window of time with the numbers of volunteers you have to figure out what can you actually get done. You know, it'd be great to say, I just want to take care of this whole access trail. I want to just improve this staging area. But you have to be realistic and think about what you can actually accomplish and what's going to do the most good. So, and a lot of times, again, that can be through some guidance from the land manager, but also from, you know, using your expertise as climbers and people that utilize these crags and what people are going to, what's going to benefit the community the most. So triage, triage the site and kind of figure out what's the worst, but also what's the most feasible to get done. Oops. One of the things you think about is in the preparation side of things. You know, the morning of, everybody shows up and it's like, okay, we're ready to work. Well, make sure you've laid out that work plan beforehand. That comes into that time part. You know, whether it's flagging an area that you want cut, and think about, you know, if it's a larger group, think about crews and think about splitting that group up into smaller groups to accomplish different areas. What we did at the Spires was we split up we had 11 people and 3 staff. And we split those up into 3 groups, and we had crew leaders essentially. And we started one group at the bottom, bumped the next group up, and then so on. And then as one crew finished their section, they'd leapfrog and just go up the hill. And that really, I mean, that's one of the reasons I think we knocked out so much work is smaller pieces. And it was actually, I think, mentally it helped too, because people weren't just, it was you'd get a section done and move on, and you'd have the sense of accomplishment because you got your section done. And in fact, it was kind of one of the interesting challenges we faced was people were moving so fast. We're trying to keep up with these groups and make sure that everything's getting done, you know. And at one point, it was just like, well, things are looking good. Let's just let them go. I'll come in afterwards, and if there's any issues, we'll fix them. But it ended up being great. So that's a big thing, is lay out your work plan and make sure that people understand it. Logistics, communicating with your volunteers. We kind of covered that. Planning for emergencies, very important. We have people out there in the back country perhaps, or even the front country, using sharp implements. Hopefully they've come with good sturdy shoes and stuff like that, gloves. But there's always a chance that there's going to be an issue, and hopefully it's a minor one, but there's always a chance that it could be a serious one when you're dealing with steep slopes and sharp tools, rocks, cutting feet, all kinds of fun stuff. So don't overlook that. If you have somebody in your organization that has some experience there, tap into that. Talk to the land manager. Really plan that out. Think about where your nearest resource is for medical attention. Think about how you're going to communicate that you need medical help. And if you have somebody on your team that is first responder or something like that, tap into them. Make them your medical for the day. If something happens, even if you're at the top of the hill, you're coming down here to respond to this. I think that's an important thing to consider. That's what I think about, just 'cause I'm a park ranger. We deal with them. Tools can be tough, but if you're working with these agencies, more than likely they have a tool cache you can maybe tap into. And then feeding your volunteers. I approached a local restaurant in Pine Grove, which was located near the Spires, and they said, "What can you do for us?" And they gave everybody that volunteered that day 50% off on their meal. So it wasn't a free lunch, but it's a really nice restaurant in the valley, and so everyone was pretty psyched with that. And it was kind of it made for a nice after work debrief and kind of just shooting the bull session. You know, it was a good little. I would say 9 of the 11 volunteers took part. The 2 that didn't just had other commitments. They couldn't stay in the valley that day. So that was a nice way to kind of keep that camaraderie and also, you know, reward folks outside of just the work they had done. They got a little something. And it's kind of a popular spot for climbers to stop anyway down there when they're climbing the Platte. So people definitely were familiar with the restaurant and appreciated the chance to get a cheaper meal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, I live down that valley, and so I know the fellow who owns the restaurant. He's always looking for ways to promote himself to the climbing community because he realizes what a resource. The Platte's interesting because it's so spread out, but he's really kind of on the way home for a lot of people. So he definitely tries to market himself to the climbing community for sure. Integral part of this, I mean, the Adopt Crag is the Access Fund's child. So, and they have a lot of resources to provide. They can advertise for you, they can give you things to give to your volunteers, they can probably even give you good advice beyond what I'm telling you. And so, very important when you decide to start this whole process to get in touch with the Access Fund, and Jenny was my contact. I think she would be yours as well.
Yeah, I'm the point person right now for Adopt Crag.
So, and she did a great job in helping me. We chatted. She sent me a nice box full of Cliff Bars and wag bags and raffle items, and they were huge in helping us out, and I can't say enough for what an important part of the whole Access Fund, or the whole Adopt a Crag process, getting in touch and working closely with the Access Fund is. One example, I guess, we're going to talk about advertising, so we can talk about them in his part too. One of the processes for advertising that I use, because I was Jefferson County Open Space, not a local climbing organization with a bunch of climbers under me, or kind of, I didn't have that pool already of motivated climbers. One was with Access Fund, but they also they passed my name along to the Boulder climbing community, and they were having actually an Access Fund, Adopt Crag, I don't know if it was the same day or it was maybe the same week, and they had kind of capped their numbers. They had a huge amount of volunteers sign up. So they in turn said, hey, we're full, but why don't you go down and help out on the spires? And that was huge because it gave me whole other mailing list that I didn't have access to prior. I also utilized Mountain Project. I love Mountain Project. I use it all the time. I use it for management. I'm on there when it comes to open space, land management issues. I'm the ranger on that, in the forums, on the comment pages, saying, please don't cut that new trail, or here's what's going on with Clear Creek Canyon or the spires, or Raptor management at the spires. And so Mountain Project was great. And I don't know, I think there's probably more usage in the Rocky Mountain region on Mountain Project than maybe in some of the eastern states. But it's still, I think, a worthwhile avenue to go and put that out there and utilize it, because you're going to get people that are hopefully motivated climbers on those sites. And that's, I think the majority of my information, or my volunteers got the information from Mountain Project, and that kind of word just kind of trickled through. So that was great. And then of course, your basic flyers. I pass those around to local climbing shops, put one up here, and just whatever you can do to get the word out. That's really the biggest thing, is just spread your net wide, because your core is inevitably, unless you're really lucky, going to be smaller than your widest cast. So you need to try to draw from every avenue you can possibly can. It doesn't, I would say it's a rare occurrence you would get too many volunteers. It's possible. You could get too many that overwhelm what you have, and maybe you have to think about what your cap is. But at least initially, cast it wide, and that's my best advice, is because that's one of the biggest challenges.
So do you tend to organize everything you want to get done before you start to advertise, so you kind of know how large of a group you need?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is, one of the challenges I had was my bosses kind of said, okay, you have it's a month out, let's do this. And so I said, well, I got online and I checked out the Access Fund website, and I saw like the suggested time out for advertising. I'm like, well, we're well inside of that. We better get in contact with them. But so we had to scurry, but we also had the benefit of knowing what we wanted to get done. But yeah, start planning way early, figure out what you need, and then you can never start too early, I don't think.
Never occurred to me until this conversation. We're super lucky in the Southeast. We have a really strong volunteer. Mm-hmm. I've had 130 volunteers come out to clean up San Juan, for example.
Nice.
But you said same week or same day there was this other thing going on, and they got to capacity. They had this great cache of volunteers, and they had a lot of numbers. Mm-hmm. Never occurred to me to think about identifying a good number of how many volunteers you want and need, and capping it as a way to help with your advertising, to give it sort of this cachet, like, ooh, you want to get it on this? It's limited. We can only take, no, it just never occurred to me until this, and I wonder if that might be something we might experiment with.
Possibly.
You can only take 40 men, sign up now.
Right, yeah.
No, that's a well documented marketing technique.
Right, but I never thought about it in this environment, because I'm
Yeah.
always thinking more.
Well, yeah, but that's how
We
you
gotta
get
go
more
for
because it
everybody.
makes people
But-
act. And
Right.
they know
Yeah.
there's a deadline.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
But I set a deadline, and it was one of the challenges. I set a deadline, and the day of my deadline, I had 9 volunteers signed up. And then I'm like, well, 9, gosh, I was really expecting more, you know. And then it was like a week after my deadline, I was still getting more and more and more, and ended up with those 20 signups and the 11 that showed up. So maybe I didn't really look at who signed up initially. If the people that signed up first were the more motivated ones that actually showed up.
Never publish your sign-up list because people look at the sign-up list.
Oh, yeah.
and go,
Oh, no.
If Steve's going, I'm going to go. But if
Yeah.
Steve's not going, I'm not going.
No, yeah, it was all, people were just emailing me when they wanted, you know, if they were
That
interested.
happens all the time. Like you ever get those online party invites?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go because Mike's the guy.
Right. You know, and I didn't even think about this, but I don't know how many of you that belong to these organizations have your own Facebook page, but I mean, social media, Web 2.0 is like, it's huge. That's, you know, in Fort Collins, they just had that 5,000 person party because everyone invited their friends. So, I mean, you know, I think.
You don't want to use that. I was going to mention something, I think that Jenny does this for you to send out a mail blast.
Yep.
Is that right?
She does.
But you have to be a little bit careful with that depending on your area.
Mm-hmm.
Because isn't it generally like 10, 20 miles around?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So when we send out our e-blast, it goes out by zip code, and I think the outer limit is 100 miles out. So, you know, like in your situation where you wanted to get people in the LA area and the San Diego area, so let me know and I can send out special.
Because there's a difference between like here, I would imagine you can get all the time you want, 50 miles of the site.
Yeah.
But if we do 50 miles around Idlewild, you're getting a whole bunch of people in the desert, just way out there.
Right.
And you're not thinking of LA, and then LA is where all the climbers come from.
Right.
So you just want to work with Jenny to.
Yeah, target your audience for sure.
We're teaching her. You know. Again, she did it, and I thought, oh, this is great, except I never got an email. So, wait a second, I'm not getting one, who else is getting one?
Right, yeah.
So then we come and do it a different way.
You know what's also really cool that I use a lot for marketing is meetup.com. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's this really cool website. It's super easy to use. And you go on and you can create an event. So you can create a volunteer event, and then it's searchable to anyone. And they can go on. People are pretty dedicated to meetup, and you can post it under climbing, or you can post it under volunteer activity. And anyone can search it, and they can search by their area. So when
Nice.
the zip code your event is in, it automatically comes up when people are looking for it.
Very cool, yeah.
Cool, thank you.
That's the thing, you know.
And it's an easy website.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Super easy.
I mean, the internet is, I mean, there's so many options now to get the word out. I mean, be creative is what I would say for the most important part.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
What's the typical life cycle of a Dr. Crag project?
As, I guess, what do you mean exactly?
Well, is it a day event, week
Oh.
event, week-long event?
For us, it was a day event.
Okay.
Yeah,
Doing one day?
yeah.
But then from that whole life cycle process of it, so thought, plan, execution, completion, quality check on it, and then going back to maintain it?
Well, okay, that's, okay.
Like, would you say that's like a year thing? Because okay, so I'm trying to tie this into the district. So if I can set up a program where it's going to have the kids go out,
Yeah.
how often would that cycle around in a location?
Sure.
In your experience, maybe in Jeff Go, how
Well,
long is that?
I can tell you right now for the Spires, I hope the life cycle on our Dr. Crag at the Spires is in perpetuity. I want to be able to every spring, so the way we've worked it is, Cathedral Spires in the past had a blanket raptor closure from March 1 to July 31st. Which covered a wide expanse of the cliff, even though we had one nest in pair. We lacked resources in a lot of ways to monitor the raptors in the past. And one of the reasons we built these trails was to better accommodate recreation and natural resource protection at one time. And so last year was the first time we ever implemented spot closures, which meant we took a blanket closure at the beginning of the year, determined where the raptors were nesting, and said, if the raptors are nesting here, we can open up this. If they're over here, we can open up this. And so as kind of a celebration, if you will, of the lifting of the blanket closure and the implementation of the spot closure, we had this Adopt a Crag to open up one side of the spires. And my goal is going to be that every year we do this. And I'm already talking with folks about looking at possibly doing one next year. There will be trail maintenance on that trail we built last year. Because when we built the trail, we knew it was the first step in a process. This trail was we're going to need to go back in and put water bars in and do some light maintenance and that sort of thing. And so I want to every year have this adopt a crag at this site, and it's kind of that celebration of we've been the blanket closure has been lifted. We can climb in this area now. Let's get this work on this trail and kind of celebrate the opening of it. So that's kind of the idea. So I think if you can establish a pattern, I'm hopeful that will become a tradition and we'll get more and more volunteers every year. Kind of turn it into like a celebration more than just a day of work.
And the second question was liability. Is Jeffco, handling that?
Well, no.
I'm smiling, but I'm also thinking back to my New Jersey roots. And,
no, yeah.
All my friends are lawyers, so
right.
It's the kind of thing where an incident happens. Let's say I have a kid working on the project, and I think there's a school liability that's covering that, but also if you're doing this all on your own, where does that liability fall into place? And are there waivers and stuff like that?
There are. And with us, it was interesting because Access Fund had their waivers, which I had people fill out, but Jefferson County also wanted people to fill out their waivers. So we had, it's like, 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock. They're like, welcome, here's 6 sheets of paper to fill out. But it's important. And there's the Access Fund will hook you up as part of your sign-up process with the liability waivers that you can hand out in the morning. That's very important because it's a.
You might consider, especially if you have a big group, emailing them to the head.
That's a great idea.
When you're going to have 30-some people, that's what we did.
And that's a fantastic idea and something that hadn't even occurred to me. So that's great. I'm actually going to use that. That's awesome.
Sorry to.
No.
Do you guys do that?
Eager to answer that. Yes. Well, it starts out that I have a climbing jump, so that's a regular part of our breathing. But it will also, you get those waivers out, email, somebody says I want to volunteer, or a school.
Yeah, well,
you're
the
working with a school, and you're saying, you guys want to volunteer? You get that out early, it's like they've paid. It's like they've paid, they're going to come.
Sure.
So it's going to also increase your day of
I like that.
participation.
Yeah,
that's cool. Okay.
Meetup will have an RSVP if you use Meetup.
There you go.
And then you click on the RSVP. Sometimes they don't show up, so sometimes the Meetup people tell you to use like minimum amount of money, like $5 or something, RSVP. You know they're coming.
Right.
Meetup also has a feature where when people sign up for your event, you actually get their email address, and you can then email them reminders like the day before.
Okay.
Yeah, right, it does regular reminders, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's all good stuff. Absolutely.
And then
And then afterwards, there's like a meetup. They'll after the event, they'll say, "How's the meetup?"
Okay.
And you get about
Nice. Huh.
You can post pictures of the event.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think going electronic is definitely, is a good thing. And I like the idea of sending out the waivers early. That's really awesome.
You mentioned pictures, you should be sure to take pictures and send them to the Access Fund.
Yeah.
We always like to have pictures.
Absolutely.
For your project, just out of curiosity, what was your budget?
I'm not really, they just set me free. I didn't really, it was more just my man hours. So I didn't really have a budget per se. It was a project we needed to get done. And, from Open Space's standpoint, we're using volunteer labor, so we were saving a ton of money. Considering 11 people on the ground cutting trail, that would have been, that would have been huge. I don't actually have, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have like a good number, solid number for you.
Like what you're saying is, I'm reading your mind here. That was a big selling point.
Oh, yeah.
You were saying,
and that's how.
I'm going to save this bureaucusy, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking about how to get into the bureaucracy still.
And that's how I sell it. And whenever I'm talking about these trail projects and what we can do in Clear Creek Canyon, because that's kind of my next target as far as establishing approach trails, access trails to these crags, is I keep touting the motivation of the climb community and their desire to improve these areas. And you see it. Land managers don't typically like this, but climbers often build trails and try their best to build sustainable areas. They don't always do the best job because they don't quite have a lot of times they don't have the training or the knowledge. They do what they think will work, but it shows evidence that they care. And so that's really what I'm always trying to impart, is there's a motivated, caring user group that wants to take ownership in some of these areas. We need to tap into that. We need to embrace that. We need to be more than just accepting. We need to go to them. We need to engage them actively.
How do we clone you and get you? I mean, I've been lucky, the ranger I work with, where I have, is of the same thing. He already worked with Access Fund, and he was enthusiastic about working with the Access Fund, so that was wonderful. But you go someplace else and you don't know, find him somehow, but it's not no guarantee.
Yeah.
It's a challenge for sure. A lot of areas.
Okay, so maybe we don't find those folks, but maybe we have to create them by, now take it back up on something you said earlier about priorities, by seeking out information from them, the land managers. What are your priorities for this place? Because we're involved and invested and we want to have a great time there. So what are your priorities? And then we go back and talk to folks and we quantify maybe how much money we can save you, because we're going to do something that you want done anyway. And maybe that's how we create
as long as
them as
it's the case
allies.
that what you want done is something they want done. Where with some climate trails, unless you have the right person, they don't care.
But if there's conflict, if we aren't, I have this saying, like we can't communicate if we don't communicate.
Yeah.
So then if there's conflict there, now we know it for real and we can be in there.
Well, and then you have to go to them and say, okay, so you haven't thought about why you would want this climate trail fixed, but if it were improved, there would be a lot less erosion. And so the whole thing would be better off, climbers would be better off, the environment would be better off. So you can hopefully come up with something like that.
And I realize there's a chance that first person you might talk to is going to be the antithesis of me, I guess. And don't get discouraged by that, because I work with people that we butt heads on how we should be managing our climate areas, and so just don't get discouraged. That's my biggest thing. And when working with these land management agencies, they're and I think with enough fortitude and effort, you can get a lot of what you envision done. But at the same time, you have to come in with a positive attitude. Don't come in thinking that you're the rogues. And I know that's a very popular attitude. I heard some of that earlier today, in fact, with some conversations people were having about how a lot of these land management agencies would just like to see us go away. I thought, that's the wrong opinion to be carrying if you're trying to work with the land management agency. So try and understand that's a very popular opinion and line of belief, and a lot of time, and some people will often, and some organizations will prove you correct sometimes with that attitude. But it's a two-way street. You have to stay positive, and you have to try to engage in a positive manner, and don't try to avoid that belief that you're the rogues, you're the thorn in the side of the government agency. Think partnerships. Think. You have to.
Maybe aren't as big as mountain bikers or something like that, but they're still a valid use of them.
Absolutely. I feel lucky to work for an organization that has. We have a climate management plan, and first thing it says is we consider climate to be a use that is legitimate, and that's huge.
I hope that we have that in Colorado.
You would hope, yeah, on the Front Range of Colorado, absolutely. So, yeah.
If there's one thing I can share, is that one of the biggest mistakes volunteer organizations make is they come in, they want to do something, but they never stop and ask the folks that they're going to volunteer to work for what those people want.
Yes.
That's the biggest mistake. Like when the Haiti thing happened, how many organizations went down to Haiti and said, oh yeah, we're going to come in and do all this stuff for you?
Yeah.
And half the time the people down in Haiti say, well, we don't need to have that, we need to have this. And we don't do that, we don't build the trains, we only do medical support, we only do this. So sometimes the people have the vested interests are the ones that really are the ones that you need to tap into.
I would agree.
To find out what their agenda is, what their needs are, and somehow find a way to take what they need and marry it to what
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's huge. It's not just there's a compromise. There's this is coming together, hopefully, that you have your ideas and they have yours, and you bring it together.
And then listening, like you said, listening is probably the biggest.
Yep.
Well, I know that's from first-hand experience.
Yeah.
From volunteer organizations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's key. That's absolutely true. I don't know how we're doing on time here. 11:05. We had.
Yep, we got 10 minutes. So
Okay. That's kind of, this is awesome. I love this back and forth. Is there any more, anything else anyone wants to share, or questions from me or anything like that?
What's it like working with a bunch of volunteers?
It's awesome. I loved it, man. It was great. So outside of this project, the Rangers we have 150 park patrollers that kind of exist and help us on a daily basis. So I'm very intimate on working with volunteers, and it's fantastic. I think, especially for projects like this, what I'm talking about today, people are usually very psyched to get out there and work. And one of the things I think is important is not to is to make sure you clearly state in your recruitment what your expectations are and what the day is going to be like. So somebody doesn't show up in their open-toed sandals ready to go, and you say, well, let's go cut trail, and or let them know that there's 1,200 feet of elevation gain on this access trail that you're going to be working on, and so they're prepared for what the day is going to bring. That's incredibly important.
As a takeaway, is there one piece of advice or a pitfall that you've seen before, or disaster, or something you want to share?
Things I learned.
Very positive.
Things I learned. You can't be overly organized.
Okay.
I'm not the most inline spreadsheet organized individual, and I would have paid off to be one a little maybe. That helps. The more organized you are, the better. It was such a positive experience.
Well, if you can't think of one, that's really good.
Yeah. No. Start early. Start early. It'll make your life much saner. Start early, plan well, and just.
What about weather? What do you do for weather? The event's planned and it's raining like hell first thing in the morning.
It's tough.
That almost happened to you.
It did almost happen to us.
That's what I'm asking. There's got to be everybody experience.
Set a rain date.
Yeah, but you always plan an alternate
Set a rain
date.
date.
What's that?
You plan a rain date?
We didn't plan a rain date. We just kind of crossed our fingers.
You live in Colorado.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Jersey,
I understand. I'm from Maine originally, so I just totally understand. Rain date would probably, that's probably a good idea. It comes into that planning process. But again, set your expectations. If it's a light drizzle and you can get work done, hey, bring your raincoats. Let's get, we have work to do. And let people know that this is it's a feel-good volunteer project. You're still going to be out there to work. And we want to make things as comfortable as possible, but I guess kind of have your threshold.
That's part of setting the expectation.
Yeah.
We will rain if it's light rain. But
if it's downpour.
Lightning.
That comes down to safety there. A rain date's probably a good idea for sure. Yes, sir.
Hey, you talked to cover a lot of things. One thing you didn't cover, I'm kind of concerned about. I worked in a heavy industrial environment stuff for 36 years. It's tool safety. For some tools, you can't let volunteers.
Very true.
We build steps and step trails, drill holes and rock anchors, hammer drills, all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
So do most of you do planning on that stuff, make sure there's no accidents to happen?
There's, for instance, we're talking about right now, working hopefully this winter on building some granite stairs on the eastern side of the spires. We don't consider that a volunteer project because of that safety aspect. The work we're going to be doing with volunteers primarily is going to be hand tools, the Pulaskis, McLeods, shovels, which still poses a potential risk. But before we got started, I'm sorry I kind of brushed over that, we definitely did a little mini training example of what we wanted to see accomplished, how the tools work, how to make the tools work for you, so you're not working against the tools. Also, we had a few areas where some chainsaw work was required. That was my venue, not the volunteers. And so yeah, definitely laying out the proper way to utilize the tools and have that. What we did is we went up to the first kind of tread we wanted to improve, and we showed them how to appropriately.
Trail maintenance and stuff for the national park. I had a couple of friends one time on a small club we belonged to. They took it upon themselves to take consistency and reason about being qualified. Of course, the Park Service confiscated it and gave it back to them later.
Yeah.
So there's regulations when it comes to working on national landmark, national forest, national park, state land, and so on and so forth. Certain tools you got to qualify for.
Sure. Absolutely, yeah, that's huge. Yeah, it comes down to that safety and planning, thinking about what, and again, talk to the land manager. What are their
As far as your plan, though, you can incorporate that into your plan. Right?
Absolutely.
Having the qualified people there.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just take that a big part of whenever we.
That's a great point. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, we're good.
So you're the planner, but you also work for land management. Like if I'm going to do one, I'm a planner. So the salary, the money and time thing. I know you started out with time and said, can't tell you really how much time this is going to take.
Right.
I'm wondering, any of you guys in here just flat out volunteers who might plan something? Everyone? So it's not just like it's your job and you can integrate that. So I'd love to hear from you guys more, like, how do you do that? If I want to get volunteers in my area who this isn't their day job,
Right.
what can I share with them to say, if you want to take on this project, this is the kind of expectation and planning you should have for yourself in terms of what you're going to put into it, or do you need a co-leader, and how do you? So
I think having a team helps. From my end, I had Jeff Young was my cohort in crime on this, and he covered, he was my trails guy, and he was the guy out there looking at the trail and what needed to be done. So he covered that end of it. Well, I covered kind of the administrative side of it. And
A lot of the local climate organizations will do, one person will do, organizing the volunteers, one person will do sort of the marketing and things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teamwork involved.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to press you for maybe something specific that you can't do, but I'll press. So I want to put together a team to help do it. Dr. Crag, I want to be able to tell them your commitment to this is approximately 90 of your valuable hours versus 5 of your valuable hours.
You probably have to start first by figuring out what it is you want to accomplish,
Yeah.
how big is the job, and then
Yeah.
how much, figure out how much resource you need.
If it's a trash cleanup day, you're probably going to have a pretty low on the lower end of your time commitment spectrum, I would think. As your project gets more grand and bigger in scope, then, so let's say I had a month, right? And I probably worked, 5 hours, 6 hours a week, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
And so I was looking at close to maybe 30 hours.
Okay. That's kind of
60.
But that's just, that is such a,
A month,
okay.
40 hours a week,
Okay.
times 4 weeks.
that's just rough. That's just very rough. It may have been a lot more than that. I'm just trying
I'm
to,
thinking recruitment of that team that you talked about. How do I recruit a team and allocate, responsibilities that are reasonable to ask of folks
right,
to get them to commit. Thanks.
yeah.
So if you do the trash cleanup day, how do you dispose of trash? Does the town work with you?
Hopefully, hopefully your land manager will should help you out. We do trash cleanup days on other areas in open space, and we volunteers go out and do cleanups, and our maintenance staff will go out and pick up afterwards. Or my wife and I have adopt a highway down where we live, and we pick up trash and we just leave the bags on the side of the road. We let and then the county comes through later on and picks the stuff up. So generally they're pretty good about helping you out with that disposal afterwards. Well, I appreciate y'all being so back and forth with this discussion. I think that was an important part of this being successful. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.